Um, we're trying to, recognize that this is a very difficult time to be graduating. I think we all understand that. Um, Going to the first screen, Emily, job search can cause, angst and distress, even in the best possible times when everything is quote unquote normal. But now we have extra challenges in dealing with COVID and all that that means. So for some of you, I think it may be helpful as you think about how you went through your senior year, all of the challenges that were thrust upon you during the last semester with switching to online instruction, completing everything in a very different way than you might have expected. Perhaps you did not have the time that you would have had to get things in order for your job search. And so with that in mind, perhaps it's helpful to think of this time as a gift, in a sense, that you have in order to put things in good order. So one thing to do is to have a mindset, if you do not have a job at the present time, or if you're still working in a part-time job that may be essential, what can you do with some of the time that you have since your courses have ended to begin the job search process? And I think one helpful way to look at it is to think of your job search as your current job, and to put together the elements of that you will work on on a daily basis to make progress toward reaching your goals. One thing that you can certainly think about doing is cleaning up your presence on social media, your Facebook account, any other Instagram, anything else that's out there that is attached to your identity. See what you can do to clean that up and create a professional presence across all of your platforms. This even goes to certain things that are not social media, such as the email address that appears on your resume, or thinking about the answering machine that someone would get if they call your phone. What kind of message would they get from you? So begin to think about putting your professional presence out there across all of your platforms, be they traditional or social or what have you. Clean it all up and make sure that it's a unified presence. Think about updating your resume. Maybe you haven't had time to put one together. This is a great time to begin to draft one, see what that's going to look like. In Wednesday's webinar, there will be a deeper dive into resume and job search from that perspective. But definitely get yourself working on your resume. Your LinkedIn profile, if you don't have one, set one up. Whip that into shape. Become familiar, if you haven't if you haven't set up a Handshake account, then please do so, and you can get to that through the Career Development Center homepage and click the Handshake button to join and set up a Handshake account, where you can look at job postings from various employers. If you've already set up an account, become more familiar with it and spend some time there seeing what that account can demonstrate for you. Think about possibly volunteering. If even though you're wanting to be engaged perhaps in full-time work eventually, if something isn't happening for you immediately, what kind of volunteering can you do where you might gain some experience right now, rather than sitting on your hands, so to speak? What can you be proactive about? Many nonprofits have need because they're always short on staff. Is there something you can use your skills to do for them that you can then add to that resume that you are building? One of the things we're thinking may be developing in the future may be some virtual internships, given the fact that we don't know how long the COVID situation is going to last, or would there be a second wave or what have you. The Career Center and the Alumni Office may in fact be developing some outreach to employers about virtual internships. And that's something that you may want to initiate an inquiry about on your own. All of this is going to be about developing and calling upon your network. Another thing you can certainly do is practice interviewing skills. Friday's workshop is going to be directed more specifically about interviewing skills. Those are certainly something you can begin to practice. And we have some tools that you'll hear about then that you can use to do that. Informational interviewing. This is another thing that you might look into doing if you haven't decided yet exactly what you're going to do with your degree, or if you do know but want to begin to start building a network of contacts. Oftentimes, job opportunities reveal themselves during things like informational interviews. So that's another possible avenue to be exploring during this time. Preparing some answers that you might get to typical interview questions, such as, tell me about yourself, or can you describe your strengths, or tell me about a time when you had difficulty with this, or, you know, some of those behavioral questions that often come up in interview scenarios. Practice what your responses to those might be, so that if and when the opportunity presents itself for an interview, you're prepared and you're ready to act more immediately. Can we have the next slide, Emily? Okay, so some of you indicated you had some specific career goals in mind that were pretty directly related to your major. Some of you maybe had not yet decided what you were going to do with that major. I just want to mention, for those of you who may not have been aware of it, there is a good resource available right from the Career Development Center website, right from our homepage at ric.edu, search career development. When you go there, on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a For Students button. If you click that, follow the links to what can I do with a major in by linking first to decided on a major and want to know what you can do with it. And you'll take a couple of quick links that will get you to what can I do with this major. And even though you may have had some ideas of what your major might prepare you to do, taking a look at this resource might just widen your view of what the possibilities are. You might uncover a nugget or two or an idea or two of something you had not necessarily thought of before. And the way this particular tool is laid out, when you look at your particular major, it will present information to you. And I would just note for you, if you're using this, to click Print View. It will bring the resource up with the areas in which you might work, who the employers are that hire people in those areas, and then there's a strategies suggestion list that you might follow that might help you improve your odds of preparing to work in that field. So take a look at that tool if you haven't done so already. Familiarize yourself with it and see if you uncover any helpful tips that might be good to explore right now. So one thing I think I would be asking myself right now is, you know, I may have had some thoughts about what I was going to do, but how flexible can I be? The situation is certainly something no one could have expected. The job search can be daunting even in the best of times. So how can I take a realistic inventory of my skills to kind of think about how I can improve my odds of finding work? How flexible can I be? Am I willing to take a chance on something that I might not have thought of before, or even something that might not be directly related to what I thought I might be doing, as a way of gaining entree into the world of work? Am I willing to relocate? Maybe I didn't want to leave Rhode Island, but maybe now I see that there's an opportunity if I were willing to look a little further afield. So be kind of thinking that way. Are you willing to be a little bit more flexible? I am told by folks in our career center who work in employer relations that yes, employers are continuing to hire. So don't be afraid to expand your consideration as to what you might do, and look in Handshake to see who is posting a job opportunity. Emily? So we're going to get a little bit technical and a little definition oriented here, just to kind of think about avenues for employment. There's what we think of as the meritocracy. In the meritocracy, employment is, generally major companies and corporations. They start people off at the very basic entry level, and folks are expected to be go-getters who are geared toward advancement and looking to climb what you might think of as the ladder of success. So those are big companies, corporations, some banks, and so forth. You might start out as a teller, move up to being an assistant branch manager to branch manager, and on up the corporate ladder, just as an example. The challenge is there, if and when you get an opportunity to interview for such a job, are to demonstrate to an employer in your interview that you have growth potential, that you're somebody who really sees yourself as working to grow and move on up. But the challenges for yourself personally are to see yourself as more than just a commodity, to recognize you are an individual and carve out a space for yourself, because it's easy in the meritocracy to begin to feel as if you may just be a replaceable cog in a wheel. So, that challenge is to kind of keep your own personal integrity and, value for yourself. Let's look at the American traditional. This is more like most of the jobs many of you will be applying for. These tend to be jobs where there are opportunities for all kinds of work that you might qualify for just by virtue of your education, because you've mastered your area of concentration, you've demonstrated that you're someone who can achieve. And even in spite of this, as a new college grad, you might still be starting at an entry level, but depending on what experience you've already been able to demonstrate on your resume and what kind of experience you've had, if you've been someone who's come to college after perhaps working for a little while or what have you, you may find that you're able to apply for something that may be above the basic entry level. Here, employers may have other specific needs, and your advancement may not depend quite as much, or your ability to get a job may not depend quite as much on you demonstrating that you're going to work hard to move up step by step. It may still happen in these type of jobs, but it's not what an employer is going to necessarily be trying to gauge when they interview you. So your challenges for looking for a job in these areas may be more along the lines of developing your networking skills, using contacts to get your foot in the door, showing that you can do the job and fit into the organization, proving yourself, and then moving up and the reason or out. And the reason I'm saying that is, if you decide to be flexible, perhaps look at something you hadn't thought about doing, but where it demonstrates an opportunity for you to take a step and get into the world of employment, you might take something that you don't necessarily feel that you had in mind, but you take it, gain some skills, gain some recognition, move up, or perhaps then can demonstrate that you can take those skills and take them and apply them somewhere else. One example perhaps to think about is, let's say someone who graduates with an English degree wants to be able to do some feature writing, but can't necessarily be hired immediately to do that. But perhaps there's a job at a newspaper where obituaries need to be written. Who necessarily wants to do that? But perhaps the person takes the opportunity to do that, demonstrates that they can humanize or develop some things related to that, that show their writing ability, and then take it somewhere else later on. So that's just one possible way to think about things. Okay, the do-it-yourself area is one where a person creates the demand for their service. Think, if you will, for someone in art who is an artist, a sculptor, or a performing artist like a soloist. Perhaps they become so, their talent becomes so recognized that they can then be the person who is engaged to perform at a particular venue where tickets are sold and so forth and so on. Or perhaps an insurance broker who creates a perception that an insurance is needed and can then sell that insurance and sort of pass that on, you know, an independent agent who works with a company. Oftentimes, as an independent person, you might be out working at a job or perceiving a job and seeing a need that needs to be filled. That's another avenue, perhaps not immediately in this environment where businesses have been asked to close and shutter for a while, but eventually where things get up and running again, you see a need for something and you have the ability to meet that need. That may be an area where you can explore setting yourself up for a self-employment opportunity. There, the challenges are more confidence in your own ability, a realistic grasp of the market for the service you're contemplating, and of course, the resources to get started. So, the open market, this is where employers are posting their opportunities. And so where can you find out about these? Well, certainly Handshake is one. LinkedIn, job ads, different public and private employment services, and even the HR or personnel offices of specific companies. These are all places where opportunities are usually posted. What can you develop in terms of having your materials ready to go to apply for those positions? Certainly your resume, developing good cover letter writing skills. Maybe you've got a portfolio. We have Portfolium on our website. Maybe you've already begun to develop that. And certainly thinking about your references. Those of you who have indicated that you want to move on to graduate school, I'm sure are thinking about this. Good to be asking people, asking your faculty to get those letters of reference ready for you. If you're asking someone to be a reference, whether it's for graduate school or employment, and that faculty person has not had you in class for a while, are you thinking about writing to them, telling them what you're hoping to do, perhaps reminding them of a class that you took with them, a few tidbits that might help, since they meet with a lot of students over the years, that might help you jump out in their mind and help them remember you and give them something to work with so that they can write a good, strong reference for you. Keeping in mind that 20 to 30% of jobs are filled through the open market this way, which is a real eye-opener because it really brings home the fact that in order to get a job, it may be, you know, skills that you will have to employ that will go beyond just answering a job ad or looking at an employment listing. So moving on, it's the hidden market that you sometimes need to zero in on. These are employers maybe who have a need that they haven't even recognized yet. And how can that become apparent to them? Developing your network of contacts who can provide information and introductions is a way to begin to get your foot in the door, to talk with employers about what needs they have. And certainly the skill of informational interviewing is one that comes in very handy here. Think about if you have a specific career field in mind and you would like to work at a particular agency, what would it be that you'd want to hear from an employer about what it's like to work there, what they like about it, what they don't like about it, what trajectory they experienced, what did they major in, what jobs did they have that got them to the position that they hold. That's pure informational when you're trying to decide on an avenue that you might want to pursue. You can crank it up a notch if you already know that you would like to work for a particular firm or agency or business. You already know that, and you can get an informational interview. How can you research that company, research that field to demonstrate what you know about them and what you know about the field, so that when you engage with an employer to seek information about their company, what you already know about their company shows through to them. They know that you're somebody who is engaged, who's done their research, who knows why they're asking the questions that they're asking, and that you're on the ball. And they, in the course of that informational interviewing, may reveal to you something that has not yet been advertised. Or they, in speaking with you, may see the need to develop something that they had not previously thought about. That's a possibility. And again, developing your network of contacts, family, friends, friends of friends. It's kind of said that we all have about 100 people that we could list as close contacts. And if each of those 100 has 100, think about how that multiplies. I don't want to say like a virus, but when you think about how that works and how everyone knows some other folks. So as you've graduated and you begin talking with people about what you hope to do, I would be very frank with them about hoping to make contacts. Here's what I'm hoping to do. Do you know anyone that I should be talking with? And if you get some leads like that and can make those contacts, have those conversations via phone or via video for information, and then thank those folks and ask them, do you happen to think of anyone else that would be helpful for me to speak with? I'd be happy to reach out, and I'd be so grateful for your introduction. So think about those kinds of ways of building your network, whether it's in person or virtual for the time being. So we come to type focus, which is a particular tool that we like to use in the Career Development Center as a way of trying to understand what you need in order to be satisfied in your work. Sometimes students use this in order to identify a major. You folks have already been there and done that. But I would recommend to you that you may want to do this if you haven't already used the tool. You may want to do it in order to assess your personality, your interests, and your values. One of the ways this can help is that, you know, there are 16 different personality types. Each has its own special gifts. If you do the type focus personality assessment, you can learn more about what your special gifts are, so that when you begin thinking about reaching out and talking about yourself and answering that question, tell me about yourself. What are you prepared to say? How can you begin to talk about aspects of your personality that are strengths for the job that you're talking about or the job that you're inquiring about? So that's definitely worth a look. If you haven't already used the tool, it's worth a look even just from that perspective. How do I talk about myself when I'm asked an interview question? How do I talk about myself in a cover letter when I want to describe my strengths and my skills to somebody? What can I learn about myself that I can use to build a story that will engage somebody's attention or grab their interest? You can, if you have not already taken the assessment, you can do it by going to the Career Center homepage and clicking on Type Focus. It's very easy to set up an account if you haven't already done so. follow the prompts, and when you get to the place where you're asked for an access code, use RIC 35. We are currently using version 6 of Type Focus, and if you haven't done it yet and want to jump on right away and use it, please do. RIC 35 is the access code. If you don't happen to get to this for a couple of weeks, we are going to be upgrading to version 7 within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So it will kind of improve some visuals and some aspects of the tool. And you can certainly go in and redo then if you would like to do that, or if you happen to wait to use it, then version 7 will have a different access code, and that will be RIC 2020. So just if you may want to jot that down if you don't get to use the tool for a couple of weeks. So what can you offer an employer? Think about that. Type Focus kind of helps you think about what you need, but then when you transfer that to the world of employment, it's going to be all about what does the employer need? How can you convince them that you either have the experience or the education or, you know, the skills, the training, whatever it may be, that's going to allow you to do the job that needs to be done. So think about taking the Type Focus assessments, think about meeting with a counselor, and then making a list of what your gifts and strengths and skills are so that you begin practicing talking about those things. Recognizing the natural gifts of your personality. Sometimes when we talk to friends and family, it's easy to talk about what we've accomplished or what we're hoping to do or how we feel we're going to be able to use our skills. These are people that we're comfortable with. But in job search mode, we need to be comfortable or more comfortable talking with strangers. And sometimes it feels uncomfortable making I statements. Well, I this and I that and I can do this. So think about what you've learned from Type Focus. Interview some of your family and friends. Ask them to describe you. How would they describe your strengths? And listen to what they have to say. And then begin to feel more confident about being able to say these things about yourself, whether you're writing a letter or speaking to someone voice to voice or video to video, whatever the case may be. Think about all of that and craft it and practice some of your answers. In many different scenarios, you'll be asked to talk about or tell someone about yourself. So why would you not practice that? Why would you not begin to think about several different ways you could say it so that when you get that question, there's not a panic or a pause or a little unsure-footedness about how you're going to reply. Practice it often enough and in a few different ways so that the things that you want to get across will come across, even if you're a little bit nervous when the time comes. The skills that you can offer, you're going to want to be able to talk about. Be clearly focused on how you're going to demonstrate them to an employer. These can be things you've learned through your academic training, things perhaps that you've learned through a job experience that you've had, an internship, whatever it may be. And don't discount things that you may have learned in other related experiences that you've had, summer jobs, first jobs, part-time jobs. Think about transferable skills. Maybe, let's say, I know, I guess it was, let's see, Caroline, early childhood ed. Maybe you haven't had particular teaching experience before, but maybe, I don't know what your part-time work or your work while you were going to school might have been, but let's say you've had to work in a retail environment or in customer service, where you've had to resolve complaints and you've had to explain policies or whatever. Think about how that can be woven into talking with a principal about how you're able to interface with parents and explain things or resolve issues that come up in the classroom. So some of these skills that all of you may have had in other work that you've done, even though it isn't directly field related, may, if you think of the transferable skills, be things that you can weave into a story when an employer asks you to describe a difficult situation and how you handled it. Oftentimes they will be asking behavioral questions that they want to kind of see how your mind works or how you solve problems or how you interact with people. So think about that kind of storytelling that you can be prepared to do. And even better if you can demonstrate how those skills and how that story can relate to the work, the job that they need to have done. It's always when you're interviewing or writing a cover letter or talking with an employer, always trying to put yourself in their shoes. Think about the job they need to have done and how you have the skills that are going to enable you to do that for them. There may be many things that you would like to get from a job, whether it's the financial that would come with it or even more experience that would come with it. But that's not what the employer wants to hear. They really do want to know what you can do for them right now. Okay, so few things are normal right now. We recognize that. You may be feeling isolated and frustrated by that. One thing about this, it's been a great leveler across many different aspects of our culture. And employers are going through a lot of the same things that all of you are facing. So there should be empathy and understanding for that. So I'd like you to all think about being proactive, creating a process for yourself. Don't let the grass grow under your feet or, spend too much time catching up with TV series you haven't seen. There's a time for that, but make time in every day for your job, which is getting your first job out of college. So create a process for yourself, work daily to be engaged in that process. Set and complete some tasks that are going to move you forward every day, whether it's starting or improving your resume or thinking about talking about yourself, doing type focus, looking at Handshake for job postings or other job posting opportunities, talking to people about how you might network with folks that they know, getting in touch with the Career Development Center to refine your plans with a career counselor. I am often the person who works most directly. If you want to do a deeper dive on your type focus assessment and talk about that a bit more, Melissa and Demetria are more employer relations oriented in our office, and they are certainly folks who are working all the time. Melissa works all the time with employers, Handshake. She recently set up some virtual job fairs that you may have engaged in. If you didn't, please be aware that they'll be advertised in Handshake again. We are contemplating putting up another series of virtual job fairs that you may want to get your resume ready for and submit for those. Those will be coming up in a couple of weeks, I believe. So think about getting ready to do that. And if they don't speak about it on Wednesday or Friday, by all means, ask about that so that you have the last best information on what's going on with those. On your screen, you see our career development mailbox, our phone number. We're available all summer long for appointments. You can reach out through career development. You can reach out directly to me. I'm holding this up. I'm hoping you can see my direct email on the screen, ksasso@ric.edu. If you want to email me directly with a particular question that